Let me start by asking you now. Chancellor Merz has committed to unlimited defense spending. How realistic is Germany's path towards becoming a full-fledged military power?
Thank you, and I'm happy to be here. Well, I think Chancellor Merz has a difficult task. He is going to be in alliance with a party, the Social Democrats, that are slightly opposed, and in some cases adamantly opposed to what he's trying to achieve. He has this firebreak with the second most powerful party in the Bundestag, which is more sympathetic to his policies, but he has a firewall because they are far right. And so he has a tremendous political task to assert his authority in the way he wants to shape policy.
Mm. Now, Berlin plans to station 5,000 troops in Romania. What does this say about Germany's role within NATO's Eastern defense architecture?
Well, what they call enhanced forward presence within NATO was agreed several years ago. And it just is a sign of how NATO is waking up to the challenge, that these ideas are now being implemented, particularly by Germany. But it does indicate that Germany is serious about defense in NATO and not exploring seriously ideas of a defense outside NATO.
Mm-hmm. Germany has not been in full-fledged or with a full-fledged military. So despite the high ambitions, the Bundeswehr struggles with recruitment and infrastructure. Now, can voluntary service meet Germany's defense needs?
Well, that's the critical question. It's no good equipping the army if there are no or few troops to use the equipment. The deterrence of Russia depends on a credible military force within NATO and a credible American backing to NATO. And if the key player, a key country within NATO, NATO Europe, is seen as weak, then deterrence fails, and Russia may be tempted to some sort of adventurism on its borders with the Baltics or with Romania, for example. But the problem facing Germany is that it has to reconstruct an efficient defense organization. And that means bringing back conscription, but all signs are that the young do not want conscription. And they will have to, the infrastructure is not there anymore.
It's because according to the agreement after the World War, the Second World War, that there was no German military. There is no army. So how is this? How is Germany's dealing with such an issue?
Well, I don't think that's true. After the Second World War, there were doubts between the British and the French were allied in order to keep Germany in its place, keep Germany down. But in the face of Russian and Soviet power, the Americans decided that Germany was needed to defend Western Europe, and therefore it built the German army up. But what the German army didn't have was a general staff. It depended entirely on NATO and entirely by extension on the United States to direct its defense policy. And that's what the problem with Germany has been. Without leadership, without American leadership, without German leadership, the German military has atrophied. But it's not weak. It has great potential.
The coalition has ruled out reintroducing conscription for now. Now, what risks does this pose to Germany's long-term force readiness?
Well, I think it poses significant risks because, as we've said, as you've said, that the recruitment in the German army is not sufficient to man the ambitions that Germany and Merz now has. And so it's no good spending money if you don't have the troops.
Now, how do you assess the effectiveness of Germany's National Security Council in streamlining the defense coordination across ministries?
Well, it's one part of upgrading of the mechanisms of security and defense in Germany. As I said, because of the Second World War, Germany was in effect denationalized in its defense arrangements, and it depended entirely with NATO. Now it has to renationalize its defense decision-making process and deal with a problem which is unprecedented, an uncertain United States and an aggressive and assertive Russia. And that's the key problem.
That's a dilemma. Now, many German voters, especially the youth, are skeptical of military buildup. Now, how much of a challenge is public sentiment to these reforms?
Well, it's a great challenge because, as you know, Germany has a constitution which is serious and seriously applied by the Constitutional Court. And if conscription is brought back, then the Constitutional Court will decide on the fairness of the process. Some Germans are thinking, well, they can have a Swedish process that has a questionnaire for all the young to see whether they want to go into the army or whether they want to do conscription via public service, health service, in hospitals and so on. But then if the burden falls unfairly towards any one sector of the population, the Constitutional Court may well rule that the whole system is unconstitutional. So Germany faces a huge problem because its manpower is low, conscription may be needed, but the process and infrastructure for conscription has disappeared and has to be reinvented along new principles.
Now, with all these challenges we are speaking about, and with the US support to Europe potentially in decline, particularly of what concerns the military aspect, can Germany realistically fill the gap in European defense? And what should we be expecting at this upcoming stage?
Well, I think all Germany's allies, whether inside the EU or outside it, hope that Germany can be again a driving force within the security of Europe. There is no security in Europe, whether in the EU or in NATO, without active German participation and, in effect, leadership of Europe. And so Europe as a whole is hoping that it can resolve its problems. But the problems are great, and no one is underestimating it. Uh, but first of all, we have to decide what is Europe. Without the United States, there is a danger that Europe will fragment. And this is the importance of Germany. Can it avoid the fragmentation of Europe by exercising a gap in leadership which it alone can fulfill?
Right.